Hello, welcome to EPJ Pashala Spanish. My name is Nabil Ansari and I teach Spanish in the Center of Spanish, Portuguese, Italian and Latin American Studies in Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. We're in the paper entitled Spanish Grammar 1. In this module entitled Un poco de presente irregular, we are going to learn about the formation of irregular verbs in the present tense, use of present tense, expressing actions or situations which started in the past and continue in the present. Talk about the activities that we do in our leisure time. In the previous module, we learned how to form regular verbs in present tense. So the second type of verbs in Spanish are called irregular verbs or stem changing verbs. So these are those verbs which do not follow a set pattern. That's why they are called irregular, because they are not regular conjugations for these verbs. Thus, as the name indicates, the stem as well as the endings undergo a change. Now let's see some verbs that only undergo a change in the first person singular. So some of these verbs which the conjugation of which changes only in the first person singular are saber, which means to know, coger, which means to catch or to pick up, caber, which means to fit, y dar, which means to give. So let's see the conjugation of these verbs. So as you can see, so we have the subject pronoun on one side for all these verbs, that is yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, y ellos, ellas, ustedes. Now the conjugation of the verb saber is yo sé, tú sabes, él, ella, usted sabe, nosotros, nosotras sabemos, vosotros, vosotras sabéis, ellos, ellas, ustedes saben. Same way, the conjugation of the verb coger is yo cojo, tú coges, él, ella, usted coge, nosotros cogemos, vosotros cogéis, ellos, ellas, ustedes cogen. And the conjugation of the verb caber is yo quepo, tú cabes, él, ella, usted cabe, nosotros cabemos, vosotros cabéis, ellos, ellas, ustedes caben. Same way, the conjugation of dar is irregular and the conjugation is yo doy, tú das, él, ella, usted da, nosotros damos, vosotros dais, y ellos, ellas, ustedes dan. So as you can see that the irregularity in these verbs are that they do not follow a set pattern in the yo form. That is, they are the conjugation in the yo form is different, and in the rest forms, that is tú, él, ella, usted, etc., they follow a set pattern. That is to say that there is no as such changes in their conjugation. For example, saber is say in your form, but in the rest of the forms, like they are, it is conjugated as sabes, sabe, sabemos, sabéis, saben. So there is no changes in the stem. Let's see some examples just so that you can understand its use. The first one is for the verb saber, which means to know. So if we say she knows the truth, so this can be said in Spanish as ella sabe la verdad. Same way, to go is ir. So if you want to say I'm going to catch the train, we can say voy a coger el tren. So coger here means to catch. Same way, if you want to say we won't fit in the car, so we can say this by saying no cabemos en el coche. And same way, if the sentence is I will give you the book tomorrow, so it can be said as te doy el libro mañana. So doy here used for the verb dar. So doy is the present tense yo form, which means I will give or I give. So there are distinct types of irregular verbs. So the first classification that we will do is of those verbs whose yo form ends in go, that is go, and you can call them as yo go verbs, just to understand. They might or might not be stem changing, and the only thing that binds them is the yo form, which always ends in go. Remember, it is not an official classification, it is done only so that you can remember them. So these verbs which changes which ends in go, that is go, in the yo form are, so some of these verbs are salir, which means to leave or to go out; hacer, which means to make or to do; caer, which means to fall; traer, which means to bring; poner, which means to put. So these non-stem changing verbs are salir, hacer, caer, traer and poner, meaning that only the first person singular, that is yo form, will change. But there are other verbs whose stem also change, which means not only in the first person singular in yo form they will change, but also in the other forms. So these verbs are tener, venir, oír and decir. Tener means to have, venir is to come, oír is to hear, and decir is to tell or to say. Now let's see some more conjugation of some of these verbs that we just mentioned. So let's first see the yo form of the non-stem changing verbs. So yo form of the non-stem changing verbs are, we start with salir. So salir is salgo, sales, sale, salimos, salis, salen. Same way, the conjugation of the verb hacer is hago, haces, hace, hacemos, hacéis, hacen. And the conjugation of the verb caer is caigo, caes, cae, caemos, caéis, caen. The conjugation of traer is traigo, traes, trae, traemos, traéis, traen. And poner is pongo, pones, pone, ponemos, ponéis, ponen. So these were the conjugation of the verbs whose stem didn't change. Now let's see the examples formed by these verbs. So we will start with the verb salir, which means to leave. And for example, if you say at what time are you going to go out, so to leave or to go out is the verb salir. So this can be said as a qué hora sales, or at what time you are leaving or you are going to go out. And the reply can be salgo a las 3, which means I will go out or I leave at 3 or 3 o'clock. Second example is with the verb hacer, that is to make or to do. And if I say ¿qué haces?, this means what are you doing? Hace tu from haces. And the reply can be hago mis deberes, means I am doing or I do my homework. Same way, the verb caer, which means to fall, we can have an example as la manzana a menudo cae al suelo, meaning the apple frequently fall down on the floor. Example with the verb poner, which means to put. ¿Dónde pongo este cuadro? Meaning, where do I put this picture? Now, after having seen the verbs whose stem never changes, let's see now the stem changing verbs with their conjugation. So the stem changing verbs that we have seen, let's see their conjugation now. So the conjugation of the verb tener is tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, Tener is tienen, and tener means to have. So if I say yo tengo means I have. Tu tienes means you have. So the conjugation of another verb, stem changing verb that we are going to see is venir. Venir means to come. So the conjugation is vengo, vienes, viene, venimos, venís, vienen. The conjugation of the verb oír is oigo, oyes, oye, oímos, oís, oyen. And the conjugation of the verb decir is digo, dices, dice, decimos, decís, dicen. So if you pay attention to the conjugation of these verbs, not only they are changing in the yo form, that is tengo, vengo, oigo, indigo, but they also change happening in the other forms of the verb as well. For example, in tu form, this e changes into ie, that is tienes. Same way, this happens in the el, ella, usted form, where it changes into ie. And same way it happens with the verb venir, and also with the other verbs where the vowel or the stem changes when we conjugate them. Now let's see some examples. The example with the verb tener, for example, if I say I have two brothers, that can be said as tengo dos hermanos. If with the verb venir, if I say she's not coming today, then this can be said as ella no viene hoy. If I say I can't hear anything, so I can say no oigo nada. So oigo comes from the verb oír. And if I say he is not telling the truth, if I say he is telling the truth, so the same can be said as él dice la verdad. Now let's talk about the radical changing irregular verbs. So there are the following types of irregularities in a stem changing verb. So now we are going to see what are the kinds or types of irregularity that happens in a verb. So the first form of the verbs is where e changes into ie. It means that if the verb has got e, the vowel e, so in the conjugation, when it is conjugation, then this will change into ie. So verbs in this group are like preferir, entender, etc. So the second group of verb where this irregularity happens is the group where e changes into I. So if there is e in the verb form, then when it's conjugated, that e will change into I. And the third one is where o changes into ue. So if a verb has got the vowel o, so that will change into ue when we conjugate it. Now before going into detail, let's see the verbs where e in the stem changes to ie. Now before that, you have to remember that these verbs maintain the endings that we saw in the previous module, and also if there are two e in the stem, the second e will change into ie. Now having said that, the verbs are like querer. Querer means to want or to love, and pensar. Pensar means to think. Then there are other verbs as well, like empezar, meaning to start, comenzar, meaning to start. So empezar and comenzar means the same thing. Then we have perder. Perder means to lose. Then mentir. Mentir is to lie. Sentir. Sentir is to feel. Entender. Entender is to understand. And recomendar. Recomendar is to recommend. Now let's see how and where the e changes into ie in these verbs. So we are going to see only few examples of these verbs. Example by that I mean only few conjugations of these verbs. Now for the other verbs conjugation, you should refer back to the e-text. Now we start with the verb querer. So querer, here the querer has got e, that is k, q-u-e. So this e will change into ie in the conjugation, and that's why it is conjugated as quiero, quieres, quiere, queremos, queréis, quieren. Same way, pensar, pensar will be conjugated as pienso, piensas, piensa, pensamos, pensáis, piensan. Empezar will be conjugated as empiezo, empiezas, empieza, empezamos, empezáis, empiezan. Now let's see some examples with these verbs. So the first one is with the verb querer, which means to want. So if I say I want a pen, so this can be said as yo quiero una pluma or quiero una pluma. Second one is with the verb pensar, which means to think. So if I say I think a lot about the future, so this can be said as pienso mucho en el futuro. Same way, the one example with the verb empezar is if I say the class starts late. So this empezar means to start. So if I say the class starts late, it will be said as la clase empieza tarde. So as I mentioned, if you want to see more examples and if you want to see the conjugation of more verbs that whereby this changes happen, that the e changes into ie, you should refer back to the e-text. Now you must have noticed that the verb conjugation in the nosotros and vosotros forms do not undergo any change. So as we have seen that these changes the changes are happening in all other forms except nosotros and vosotros forms. So if we write the verb in the following form, a boot pattern can be formed for the conjugations that undergo the stem change and for the two that do not. So if you can see in this picture, the conjugation of the verb pensar, which we have written over here, the conjugations which are inside the boot will have the changes, that is pienso, piensas, piensan. So if we write the verb in the following form, a boot pattern can be formed for the conjugations that undergo the stem change and for the two that do not. If you can see in this image, the conjugation of the verb pensar is written. So the conjugations which are inside the boot has got the changes, that is yo, tú, ella, usted form and ustedes form. But nosotros and nosotras forms are outside the boot. So at times they are also called boot verbs. Now thus, as we have seen that the verbs inside the boot undergo a stem change and those outside remains as it is in the conjugation table. Now let's see some more verbs whose e in the stem changes to I. So till now we have seen verbs or some verbs whose e changes into ie. Now we are going to see verbs whose e changes into I only. So verbs like pedir, which means to order or to ask for, elegir, which means to choose, sonreír, which means to smile, seguir, which means to follow, medir, which means to measure, repetir, which means to repeat, servir, which means to serve, y corregir, corregir, which means to correct. So the verbs are also highlighted, which shows that these e will changes into I. So let's see some of the conjugations of these verbs. So the verb pedir will be conjugated as pido, pides, pide, pedimos, pedis, piden. Elegir will be conjugated as elijo, eliges, elige, elegimos, elegís, eligen. As you can see that except nosotros and vosotros form, in all other forms e is changing into I. Same way verb, for example, sonreír, the conjugation is sonrío, sonríes, sonríe, sonreímos, sonreís, sonríen. Another example of the verb is seguir. Seguir is sigo, sigues, sigue, seguimos, seguís, siguen. Let's see some examples with these verbs. For example, the verb pedir. So if I say they ask or they are asking for the bill, it can be said as ellos piden la cuenta. Second verb is elegir, which means to choose or to select. So if I say what do we choose, then it can be said as que elegimos. And the verb sonreír means to smile. So if I say my professor never smiles, so it can be said as mi profesor nunca sonríe. And the last example is of the verb seguir. If I say he follows the instruction, so the same can be said as sigue la instrucción. Apart from that, there are other verbs also, and the conjugation and their examples are given in the e-text, to which you can refer to know more. Now the third category is of the verbs whose O in the stem changes to UE. So in this category, third category, there are verbs like poder, which means can or to be able to, jugar, which means to play, dormir, which means to sleep, soñar, which means to dream, volver, which means to return for a person. So a person, if the person is returning, he will or she will use the verb volver. Devolver also means to return, but devolver is used for returning some object, like if you are returning money or books, etc. Then other verb is probar. Probar means to taste or to try. And contar. Contar means to count. So let's see conjugation of some verbs. So we start with poder. So poder will be conjugated as puedo, puedes, puede, podemos, podéis, pueden. So as you can see that here O is changing into U and A in all forms except in nosotros and vosotros form, as we have already mentioned earlier. Same way jugar is conjugated as juego, juegas, juega, jugamos, jugáis, juegan. Dormir is conjugated as duermo, duermes, duerme, dormimos, dormís, duermen. And soñar, which means to dream, is conjugated as sueño, sueñas, sueña, soñamos, soñáis, sueñan. Let us see some examples with these verbs. So we start with poder, which means can. So if I say I can't pay that much, so that can be said as no puedo pagar tanto. Second one is with the verb jugar, which means to play. So if I say we play tomorrow, so it can be said as jugamos mañana. If I say I sleep a lot, so this can be said with the verb dormir, as dormir means to sleep. So this will be said as yo duermo mucho. And if I say it's nice to dream is the verb soñar, so this can be said as es bonito soñar. Apart from this, there are other examples with the verb volver, devolver, etc., which can be seen in the e-text. Now there are some verbs that change entirely while conjugated. So there are some verbs whose whereby the changing is not or does not fall under the three categories that we mentioned. Those were where E changes into IE, or where E changes into I, or where O changes into UE. So in these verbs the conjugation changes entirely and it does not follow the mentioned pattern. So these verbs are So verbs like ser, which means to be, and ir, which means to go. So even though here the verbs and the verb end in er, but the conjugation is soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. So this was the conjugation of the verb ser. And ir, the conjugation of the verb ir is voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. So for example, yo soy Akbar, it means I am Akbar. Or voy al mercado, it means I am going to the market. Now we will look at those verbs which ends in cer or cir and which takes ending as zco in the first person singular. Refer to their conjugation in the e-text of those verbs which are not mentioned in the video. So we start with the verb conocer. Conocer means to know or to be familiar with. Other verbs are crecer, which means to grow, desaparecer, which means to disappear, conducir, which means to drive, traducir, which means to translate, and reducir, which means to reduce. So here you can see that the first three verbs that I mentioned is ending with cer, and the last three is ending with cir. So let's see the conjugation of those which is ending with cer and how the conjugation will change into zco. So conocer, the conjugation of conocer is yo conozco. So here, as you can see in the yo form, it is changing into zco, that is conozco, and the rest of the conjugation remains regular, that is conoces, conoce, conocemos, conocéis, conocen. Same goes for the verb crecer. Crecer is to grow, so yo crezco, and in the rest it's regular, that is creces, crece, crecemos, creceis, crecen. Same goes for the verb desaparecer. Desaparecer means to disappear, so the conjugation is yo desaparezco, then desapareces, desaparece, desaparecemos, desapareceis, desaparecen. So these were verbs which ended in cer, and for the conjugation of the verbs which ends in cir, refer back to the e-text. Now there are verbs ending in uir that takes a y in their conjugation. So few verbs are construir, which means to build, and destruir, which means to destroy. So how does it take y? Let's see the conjugation. So as you can see in the conjugation, construir is construyo, construyes, construye, construimos, construís, construyen. Same way, destruir is destruyo, destruyes, destruye, destruimos, destruís, destruyen. So you can see that in all the forms except nosotros and vosotros form, here this uir is changing with y. Now after having seen the conjugations and examples of the irregular verbs, and also after having seen the various ways or the endings which will change according to a set pattern, let's know when the present tense is used. So the present tense is used for not only talking about the activities that are going on in the present, but about many other things. It is used for talking about the followings. So it is used for talking about the general facts or truth of life. It is also used for talking about activities going on at the moment, or habits or usual happenings, or talking about near future plans, or expressing ideas or emotions which are not limited to any fixed time. Apart from these, it is also used in order to refer to actions or situations which started in the past and continues in the present. For example, if I say, I work in a school since 2013. So it's a past action, but it continues till present. So for this, we will use the present tense, and this will be Trabajo en una escuela desde el año 2013. So since is desde, and after that we mention the time. Same way, if I say I have studied Spanish for 8 months, so past, so this can also be said in present tense by saying estudio español desde hace 8 meses. So for this we use desde hace plus time period. And the third is when the third form is by adding time period to the verb hacer with K and present tense, which is if I say I have been living in Delhi for 5 years, it will mean it can be said in Spanish as hace 5 años que vivo en Delhi. So hace plus the time period, that is 5 años, plus que and plus the present tense, that is to live is the vivir, that's why vivo en Delhi. Now as you have learned the verbs in Spanish, let's see what you do in your leisure time. So in order to state what do we do in leisure time, we use some verbs. So these verbs can be like jugar, which means to play. So it can be used with jugar al fútbol, meaning to play football, jugar al cricket, meaning play cricket, jugar a las cartas, meaning to play cards, and jugar a los videojuegos, meaning to play video games. Same way, dormir, which means to sleep. So in my spare time, if I sleep, so I can use the verb dormir. Dormir la siesta is to sleep in the afternoon. Same way, the verb leer, leer is used for reading. So I can read novelas, which is novels, libros, which is books. Same way, escuchar means to listen. So escuchar la música, meaning music, or escuchar las canciones, meaning the songs. Same way, the verb ver is to see. So one can see TV, that is ver la tele, or movies, which is ver las películas, or teatro, meaning theater, or partido de cricket, meaning cricket match. Likewise, ir can be used with many other things for stating many other things, like ir al cine, which is to go to the cinema, ir de excursión, ir de picnic, ir de pesca, y ir de compras. And pasear, which means to go for a walk, it can also be used like pasear en el parque or pasear el perro. Same way, the verb hacer can be used with hacer ejercicio, to do exercise, hacer deportes, to do sports, hacer patinaje, hacer footing, hacer fotografías, etc. Same way, dar can be used, dar un paseo, meaning to go for a walk. Salir can be used as for stating salir a comer, or salir con amigos, or salir de copas, meaning to go out for eating, to go out with friends, and to go out for a drink. And likewise, there are other verbs like chatear, navegar, pintar, viajar, bailar, cantar. So you can read more about these in the e-text. So what have we learned in this module? In this module, we have learned about the formation of different types of irregular verbs in the present tense, and also about the uses of the present tense. Apart from that, some activities that we do or that we can do in our free time. Having said that, it is advisable that you refer to the e-text for more informations and for more examples, and also for more exercises which you can do to practice whatever you have learned. And apart from this, the e-text has various links which will take you to various websites where you can learn more about the things covered in this module. Thank you.